Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually read the road rules? Not skimmed them, not assumed you remembered them from when you first got your license, actually sat down and read them. Because what is happening in Australia in 2026 on the roads is something that the vast majority of drivers, including people who have been driving for 10, 15, 20 years, are completely unprepared for. And the consequences of being unprepared are not just a fine. We are talking license suspensions, demerit point wipeouts, and in some cases, criminal charges for things that until very recently were considered minor traffic matters. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what has changed, why it changed, and most importantly, what you need to do right now to make sure you are not the person who finds out the hard way. Welcome to AU Driving Insider, the channel that goes deeper than the headlines, deeper than the government pamphlets, and deeper than what your driving instructor told you years ago. I make these videos because the road rules in Australia are not static. They evolve, they tighten, and when they change, most people don't find out until they're standing on the side of the road with a police officer explaining something they genuinely didn't know was illegal. That is not a position I want you to be in. So let's get into it. First, let me give you the big picture of what is actually driving these changes in 2026. And I use the word driving deliberately, because this is about more than just traffic management. This is about a fundamental shift in how Australian governments at both the state and federal level are thinking about road safety, driver accountability, and the role of technology in enforcement. Australia has been sitting on some deeply uncomfortable road safety statistics for several years. The number of fatalities on Australian roads, while it has improved over the long term, has plateaued in a way that policymakers find unacceptable. And when you dig into the data, which I have done, what emerges is a very clear picture. The biggest contributors to road deaths and serious injuries are not freak accidents. They are behavioral patterns, speeding, distraction, fatigue, impairment, and a general culture of drivers believing that the road rules are guidelines rather than laws. The 2026 strategy is a direct response to that data. And it is more coordinated, more technologically advanced, and more aggressively enforced than anything Australia has rolled out before. The days of relying on the occasional booze bus or a speed camera you could spot from half a kilometer away, those days are ending. What is replacing them is a system that is frankly designed to be unavoidable. Let me tell you about the technology piece first, because this is the part that is genuinely new and genuinely shocking to most drivers when they first hear about it. Average speed cameras, also called point-to-point cameras, have been used on specific stretches of Australian highway for some time. But the 2026 rollout represents a significant expansion of this technology across multiple states. Here is how average speed cameras work, in case you are not fully across it. Instead of capturing your speed at one single point, these cameras capture your number plate when you enter a zone and again when you exit it. They then calculate your average speed across that entire distance, which means it is completely irrelevant that you slowed down when you saw the camera. If you were speeding for any meaningful portion of that stretch, the math will catch you. There is no slowing down at the right moment. There is no escape hatch. The camera knows your average, and your average is what gets you fined. Now here is what makes the 2026 expansion different from what existed before. The network is growing significantly in scale, and critically, it is being integrated with other enforcement systems. We are talking about a connected web of technology, average speed cameras feeding into number plate recognition databases, which are cross-referenced with registration and license status in real time. So it is not just about speed anymore. If your registration has lapsed, if there is a warrant on your license, if your vehicle has a defect notice, the system flags it automatically. You drive past one of these cameras with an issue on your record, and the consequences can begin before you have even arrived at your destination. This is a level of integration that Australian roads have never seen before, and AU Driving Insider has been tracking this rollout closely because it changes the risk calculation for every driver on the road. But wait, and I mean this, do not click away yet, because the technology story is actually not the most important part of what is changing in 2026. The most important part is the behavioral and legal shift that is happening alongside it. And this is the section that most news coverage has completely missed. Let me talk about mobile phone laws first, because these have been tightened in a way that many drivers simply do not realize yet. The rules around mobile phone use while driving in Australia were already strict, but 2026 has brought renewed enforcement focus and in several states expanded definitions of what constitutes illegal phone use while driving. It is no longer just about holding the phone to your ear or texting while moving. The way technology used in vehicles is being interpreted by enforcement agencies has broadened significantly. And here is the really important thing. The fines and demerit point penalties attached to mobile phone offenses have been increased substantially. In New South Wales, a mobile phone offense can now cost you 5 demerit points in a single interaction. For a driver on a provisional license, that is potentially a license-ending offense from one mistake. And the cameras designed to detect phone use? They are getting smarter. The AI-powered phone detection cameras that were trialed in New South Wales and then expanded, those are being adopted by additional states in 2026. These cameras use artificial intelligence to analyze images of vehicle cabins as cars pass through. They can detect whether a driver's hand position, eye direction, or the presence of a device in their hand suggests phone use. The detection rate is extraordinarily high. And unlike a police officer who might be fooled by someone quickly lowering a phone, the camera captures the moment in high resolution and the image is reviewed before any infringement is issued, which means the false positive rate is very low. If the camera catches you, you are almost certainly going to get the fine. Now let's talk about something that is going to feel uncomfortable for a lot of people who consider themselves good, safe drivers. The 2026 strategy has a specific focus on what enforcement agencies are calling low-level habitual speeding, and this is a concept that deserves real attention. Low-level habitual speeding means consistently traveling at speeds just above the posted limit, 3 kilometers over, 5 kilometers over, 7 kilometers over, not in sudden bursts, but as a constant pattern of driving behavior. Research consistently shows that this type of speeding, while it feels harmless to the driver, contributes significantly to collision severity. A pedestrian hit at 60 kilometers per hour has a dramatically lower survival rate than one hit at 50. The physics are brutal and unambiguous. What is changing in 2026 is that the tolerance buffers that many drivers have come to rely on. The informal understanding that you would not get caught for being 5 kilometers over the limit are being reduced or eliminated in specific zones, school zones, hospital precincts, high pedestrian areas. The enforcement in these zones is now significantly tighter, and the messaging from road safety authorities is deliberate. They want drivers to understand that the limit means the limit, not the limit plus 5, not the limit plus 10 on a clear day when the road feels empty. The limit. I want to pause here for a moment and be honest with you about something because this is what AU Driving Insider is built on. Honesty, not just information. Some of what I am describing today will feel unfair to some drivers, and I understand that. When you have driven in a certain way for 15 years and the rules suddenly feel like they are tightening around you, it is natural to feel frustrated. It is natural to feel like the government is just trying to raise revenue. That is a legitimate feeling, and I am not going to dismiss it. But I want to offer you another perspective as well. The road toll in Australia affects real families. Every statistic is a person, and the research on what reduces road deaths is very consistent. Enforcement works. Not just awareness campaigns, not just advertising. Actual enforcement that changes behavior creates measurable reductions in deaths and serious injuries. So while I understand the frustration, I also think it is important to hold both things at once. The changes are commercially significant for drivers who get caught. They are also, in the larger picture, about saving lives. Understanding that doesn't mean you have to like every element of how the strategy is being implemented, but it does mean you can engage with it more clearly and more intelligently than just dismissing it as a revenue grab. Now let me talk about something that is particularly important if you are a new driver, a provisional driver, or someone who came to Australia from another country and has converted their overseas license to an Australian one. The 2026 strategy includes a specific hardening of the approach to provisional license holders. The zero-tolerance policies that already existed around alcohol are being mirrored more explicitly in other areas. Demerit point thresholds for P-platers are being enforced with less discretion than before. And critically, the pathway back from a license suspension for provisional drivers is being made longer and more involved in several states. The message from road safety authorities is clear. The provisional period is not a right. It is a privilege that has to be actively maintained through safe behavior. And the consequences of losing it during that period are now more significant than they have ever been. For people who came to Australia from overseas and converted their license, this is something AU Driving Insider has covered in detail in previous videos and will continue to cover. There are specific things you need to understand about how your overseas driving history translates, or in many cases does not translate, into the Australian demerit system. Do not assume that because you drove safely overseas for many years, your Australian license has the same level of protection that a long-term Australian license holder might have. In many cases, it does not. And the 2026 enforcement environment means the margin for error is smaller than it has ever been. Let me now talk about something that extends beyond individual drivers and into the commercial space, because a significant portion of the people watching AU Driving Insider are either professional drivers, fleet operators, or people who drive as a core part of their job. Rideshare drivers, delivery drivers, tradespeople, long-haul truck operators. The 2026 strategy has specific provisions aimed at commercial driving that are worth understanding clearly. Fatigue management rules for heavy vehicle operators are being more actively enforced, with technology playing a bigger role. Telematics, the GPS and data logging systems that track vehicle movements, speeds, and rest stops, are increasingly being treated as legal evidence, which means that for commercial operators, the gap between what their logs say and how their drivers actually behave on the road is a growing liability. If your logs show a rest stop that the camera network contradicts, that inconsistency is a serious legal problem. For rideshare and delivery drivers, the mobile phone rules are particularly relevant. Operating an app, whether that is the Uber driver app, the DoorDash delivery interface, or any other platform, while the vehicle is moving, is not exempt from mobile phone laws just because it is your job. The app needs to be fully set up and running before you begin moving, mounted in a proper holder if you need to see the screen, and not actively interacted with while the vehicle is in motion. These rules have not changed fundamentally, but the enforcement focus on this category of driver has increased significantly in 2026. Now let me give you something practical, because information without action is just noise. Here is what you should actually do in the next 7 days based on everything I have just told you. The first thing is to look up the current demerit point balance on your license. In every Australian state, you can do this online through your state's Transport Authority website. It takes 5 minutes, and you would be surprised how many people have no idea how many points they are carrying right now. Knowing your starting position is essential before you can make smart decisions about your risk exposure. The second thing is to actually read the current road rules for your state, not the version you read 10 years ago, the current version. Road rules do change. Speed zone definitions, mobile phone regulations, the rules around driver assistance technology, these have all evolved and continue to evolve. Spending 2 hours genuinely reading the current rules for your state will put you ahead of the vast majority of Australian drivers. That is not an exaggeration. The third thing, and this specifically applies if you are a new driver, a P-plater, or someone who recently converted from an overseas license, is to seriously consider doing a refresher lesson with a qualified driving instructor. Not because you are a bad driver, but because a professional eye on your driving habits can identify things that have crept in over time that you are not aware of. Habits around speed, phone use, following distance, merging behavior, these things drift. And in a 2026 enforcement environment, drifted habits are expensive habits. The fourth thing is to check the technology in your vehicle. If you are using a phone mount, make sure it meets the legal requirements for your state. If you use a GPS or navigation app, make sure it is set up correctly and legally. If your vehicle has driver assistance technology like adaptive cruise control or lane keep assist, understand what it does and does not do legally. These systems do not make you exempt from road rules. They assist you. You remain legally responsible for the vehicle at all times. Here is the bigger thought I want to leave you with, and this is the thing I come back to every time I make a video on this channel. The road is a shared space. Every single person on it has people who love them and are waiting for them to come home. The rules that govern that space are not perfect. They are made by imperfect governments with imperfect information. but the core intention behind road safety law to reduce the number of people who don't make it home is something I think most of us can get behind. The 2026 strategy is going to catch people out. It is specifically designed to, and some of those people will be genuinely unlucky, caught by a technicality, penalized for something they did not know was illegal, caught in a transition period where the rules changed and the communication did not keep pace. That is unfortunate, and I have genuine empathy for those situations. But the vast majority of people who are going to face consequences from the 2026 enforcement strategy will be people who knew on some level that they were pushing their luck, who drove a little too fast because they always have, who checked their phone at a traffic light because it felt harmless, who never quite got around to understanding how many demerit points they were carrying. For those people, and I say this with genuine care, not judgment, the 2026 strategy is a wake-up call that it is much better to receive through a video like this than through an infringement notice or a court summons. You now know what is changing. You know why it is changing. You know what to do about it. That puts you ahead of the overwhelming majority of Australian drivers right now. This is AU Driving Insider, and this is exactly why this channel exists. Not to scare you, not to lecture you, but to make sure that when the road changes around you, you are the one who already knew. If this video was useful, and I genuinely believe it was, please hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second and it helps this video reach the drivers across Australia who need this information before they need it the hard way. Drop a comment below and tell me, which part of the 2026 strategy concerns you most? Is it the expanded camera network, the mobile phone enforcement, the changes for provisional drivers? Whatever it is, write it below. I read every comment personally, and your responses shape what I cover next. And if you are not yet subscribed to AU Driving Insider, what are you waiting for? This channel covers Australian road rules, license changes, enforcement updates, and driving strategy in a way that is honest, clear, and actually useful for real drivers on real roads. Subscribe now, turn on the notification bell, and make sure you never get caught out by a rule change you did not know about. Share this video with someone you know who drives. Because this information matters, and it matters right now. Stay safe out there. Stay informed. This is AU Driving Insider, and I will see you in the next one.